Hey guys, welcome to the Strongman Show, episode number 10. We have a big week coming up in Strongman. World's Strongest Man is starting in a few days, and this past weekend we had America's Strongest Man. So Marcus and myself this week are joined by the man from starting Strongman, Mr. Cale Beck. It's a pleasure to have you over from the States joining us tonight. You know what's been going on in the States. It's a lot harder for guys like us to find out results from America's Strongest Man. Picked up little snippets from some of the Instagram pages of some of the athletes, Travis Ortmeyer, Anthony Furman, a few others, but it's been hard to really look at results. I know you've got a spreadsheet and that you sent to me earlier, but it was so small I couldn't even pick up the results on there. So brought you onto the show to really talk about America's, and obviously I know you love talking about World's Strongest Man, so we'll chat about that. For those that don't know, we're recording this Monday night, so it's Monday the 9th. World's Strongest Man starts on the 11th. This show will probably go out on the 10th. And by then, the groups will have changed again. We were told today the groups for World's Strongest Man. Unfortunately, Wesley Claiborne won't be competing. I don't want to go into this because it's a completely another argument, but he had 4 COVID tests. He passed 2 and he failed 2. Anyway, that means Nick Best is going to be, and I don't think there's time for them to get another athlete. So Nick Best is the alternate. I should imagine he's going to step in to take that place. But it sounds like they're going to rejig some of the groups, because the groups as they stand at the moment, I mean, you guys have both seen the groups, I guess, already. Yeah. You know, group 3 for me is just like a killer group.
Yeah.
If that isn't changed, I'll be surprised if that group isn't changed, because you've got, the thing I found really interesting about that group, you've got Tom Stoltman, who's a big favorite this year, but you've also got Trey Mitchell and Alexei Novikov, and we know what happened last year when those two went head-to-head on the Atlas Stone Eliminator event. Could you imagine seeing them two going at it again this year? Do you think World's Strongest Man did that on purpose, putting them two in the same group again?
The thing is, you never ever know. That's the it would, you know, when you've got the likes of a draw, the FA Cup or something like that, where you can see it. Little things like that, whilst they are an extra, they're things to concern yourself with. But you know what? From a fan's perspective, at least you know.
Yeah.
And it just stops and curtails loads of little bits and pieces, because I know that, you know, by the time we run through the rest of the groups, and as I say, they're going to change. They'll probably change anyway. But when you look at it, you kind of, even this side of the fence, there's a couple in there you look at and go, well, I can see that there's a little bit of a pathway for that person. It doesn't look too bad, you know. Whereas other groups, it's just like that's the making of groups. It just works out that way. It could be the most random thing ever. But
groups are funny because, I mean, obviously I've competed at Worlds 11 times, and I've had some tough groups.
Yeah.
And every time you get the groups, people will look on paper and think, Jesus, that group's really hard. That group's easy. But it doesn't always work out like that.
No.
Sometimes the easy group becomes the hard group, and the hard group can just fall apart and become easy. It's, you know, I've had a couple of groups at Worlds that were absolute death groups on paper.
Yeah.
And I just looked at them and thought, you know, this is going to be tough. And all you can do as an athlete is just focus on doing your best. And I went to the competition and people fell apart. Or I've gone thinking I've got an easier group, and me as the favorite has kind of fallen apart and got injured or made mistakes or whatever it might be. So there's no guarantee at all. You know, you've got, and this year, I mean, we say it every year, but the standard improves every year. And like we were talking about with America's, the British guys, you know, all across the world, the standard is rising up. So
if you didn't know people were injured, if you didn't know people couldn't get here, and you went through most of those groups, you would not be disappointed.
Not at all. That's a great list of athletes.
It is a fantastic list of athletes. And it's because it's, you know, there's so many new faces as well. But again, those standard of those new faces is they are ready to rock and roll.
Yeah. I always think once the groups are announced is when people suddenly go, oh crap, there's a lot more better people. You know, there's a lot of people that are better than I thought. And the group stages are always, I've kind of advocated to get rid of the group stages. I think there should be a better qualifying system throughout the year. And then you take the best 10, 12, whatever it might be. But the group stages do create a good talking point for us as fans to get involved with. And they also make World's Strongest Man very interesting, because you could have take someone like Graham Hicks. Graham, with the right set of events, is a handful for anyone. You know, he's got some of the strongest shoulders in the world. His squatting's unbelievable. His deadlift's unbelievable. His log lifting, you know, he's got certain events that he's incredibly good at. But he has weaknesses as well.
Yeah.
And it can come down to like, you could have the best set of events in the final, but the events in the heats could be terrible for you.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, in his group currently as it stands, with against those athletes, that's a really tough group. That's an immensely tough group.
Yeah. And you know, like some of the events in the heats are sometimes the little bit more tricky events, you know, not so much the pure, they tend to save the real pure strength, you know, the heavier events for the final. So sometimes you see some weird results happening in the heats, and there's no guarantee that the favourites always make it.
You've got some guys in here that are chomping at the bit. You know, when we go through the list of people as well, and we single out the singleton, you know, this is a kid at the moment where we all know that we've watched his progress this year, and it's been, he has gone up a level, but he's not competed. The beauty about someone like Evan is that he is kind of made to compete. You know, he's the whole remit of his sort of being is that he just wants to prove either people wrong or himself right. And when you get to something like this, where he's just about to step in, this is his first Worlds. So for those other guys, you know, the Bishops, the Shivlakoffs, you know, Kevin Ferris, Felix, you know, he's going in as he is the rookie in the group. What a rookie.
Oh, yeah.
What a danger man to go in, because actually, do you know what? When you start looking at things like that and say, right, okay, again, he's just one of those boys you can't really sort of write off. He could be a real handful for a lot of these people.
I'm just looking at the list right now, and you say, I mean, Evan is a great rookie, but we have a load of great rookies this year.
Yeah.
You know, there's so many new faces, and I kind of said in my other video, I was comparing this year's World's Strongest Man to the 2005 World's Strongest Man, where there was a lot of new faces and the opportunity for these guys to become stars. And you've got Luke Richardson, in all accounts, looking at the groups as they stand at the moment, is the seed in his group.
Yeah.
You know, World's Strongest Man, I sort of know how they work. They usually seed the top 5.
Yeah.
So then you kind of look at this. So they don't want the top 5 guys all going into the same group. And then they'll sort of seed the next 5. And then they'll sort of put people in wherever they try and avoid putting too many like if there was only 5 Americans, there would be 1 in each group. If there was only 5 British guys, there'd be 1 in each group. You know, they try and spread out certain athletes. You know, you wouldn't want to see Tom and Luke Stoltman in the same group, for instance.
Yeah.
That they do try and mix things up like that. But I mean, let's quickly go through the groups as they stand, and let's. I mean, you know, this could all change within the next. You know, by the time this is on air, so we'll probably have a new set of.
I hear there's a meeting tonight when they're going to re-announce it. So
yeah, I mean, looking at the groups, I think Nick Best replacing Wesley Claiborne isn't too bad a swap. You know, Nick's a decent, experienced strongman.
He's more well-rounded. The thing is, I think anyone who ends up in the group, like let's say just group 5 stays the same, it's a sigh of relief, because Wesley Claiborne, you don't want to go against him loading stones for the max.
No.
So.
Yeah, if by any way, shape or form that he gets into that position of where you're going to go head to head as well.
Could you imagine, I mean, looking at that group as it is, you've got Brian Shaw, Luke Stoltman, Irvin Toots, Terry Hollins, and if it was Wesley, you know, when you think about the last event being the last man standing stones, he could be anyone.
Yeah, he's another Trey in that sense of you don't look at him at the start, but he's there at the end.
Yeah, I mean, if you're Brian Shaw, you're thinking I've got to get this through this group without getting to the stones. And Brian's a great stone lifter, but do you want to be in a bloody battle against one of the absolute best stone lifters, killing each other before you get to that final? You want to get to the final expending as little energy as possible.
And do you know what? He's going to have to battle. He's not going to get away with this one scot-free, because you're going to have a very hungry Scott. You've got an immensely talented guy in Irvin who has just had a little bit of a taste of, do you know what? Someone's opened the door for me here. I'm going in, and I'm going both boots. Yeah. So he's going to have a head of steam. And I tell you what, you know this more than anyone. Momentum in this game is a hell of a thing.
Oh, definitely. I mean, just going through, have you both got the groups in front of you?
I have, yeah.
I do.
So let's quickly run through who you, if the group stayed the same, who you would each pick to get to the final. So we'll start with Group 1. Group 1, we've got Luke Richardson, Robert Oberst, Gabriel Penn, Paro Dwyer, and Jerry Pritchett. It's another, you know,
tough.
It is. You know, before.
Should we give the quick rundown on the events that these guys are going to have as well?
Well, that could change as well.
Yeah, but just roughly, you know.
Have you got the events there?
I've not got those in front of me. I've got the groups. That's it.
Yeah. Kale might be able to tell us more on this, but I've heard one of the issues they've got at the moment is that there's a hurricane coming in to Bradenton, and
2020.
Yeah.
Well, to be fair, it is hurricane season, so you know, what did you expect?
Florida.
I mean, I can vouch that on a good year, events get changed at World's Strongest Man last minute. So this year, I'm going to give them a pass this year, you know, on all these kind of changes of groups, because these things happen in a good year. This year, they genuinely have a reason for, you know, so many dropouts and changes. So I'm going to give World's Strongest Man a bit of leniency this time around. Next year, I'm hoping, you know, it's running smoothly. But I'm going to be nice and let them have that this time around. But the events could change. But let's just say, you know, just looking at the athletes, I think before I saw these groups, I had Robert Oberst to do pretty well this year, because the events in the final are actually very good events for Robert.
Very good for him.
He's got an excellent grip. He's a great presser. He's pretty good at like moving events like the Yoke and Farmer's Walk. He's a decent stone lifter. The only real weakness in the final for him is the deadlift. And I'm not sure what he's like at throwing. You may be able to kind of say more about his throwing.
He's hit or miss on the throwing. I'd say he you know, he can have a really good run. Sometimes he takes his time. But I think he's been training hard, and his weakness is the deadlift, but the higher bar is less of an issue. I don't know if he makes up the points that way, but
I thought this set of events for the final is probably the best set of events he could ever hope for in terms of
other than if it had a squat.
Yeah, squat is better for him than a deadlift. But that being said, now that I look at his group, I'm not convinced he gets through this group.
No,
not easy.
It could be down to the stone again. But when you look, I'm gonna, as I have for God knows how long, but looking at how he's accelerated through, looking at how dialed in he's been, Luke Richardson wins that group, because it's not. For him especially, it's not heavy, but he is not the guy that takes the foot off the gas. He will be dialed in all the way through, and I cannot see him. At the moment, he doesn't make mistakes. He made, you know, he had the OSG Europes, his first ever one, made mistakes. Went away, came back, didn't make a mistake ever since. Because
let's be honest, he's only done 2 comps since.
No, but you know what I mean in terms of you see some people and they look, where he looks again like he's gathering momentum. You know,
I totally agree. But the one thing I will say, it's his first Worlds. There's going to be pressure, and there's pressure. I mean, I don't expect Luke to hold back. I think he's going to give 100% on every single event and try and secure his place in the final.
Yeah.
And I think looking at the group, he's more than capable of that. But never count out Jerry Pritchett. Jerry Pritchett, if he can hold his body together, and he's another guy that, God bless, he's very similar to myself. You know, he can have a great day or he'll fall apart. And it's, you know, unfortunately, he's fallen apart more times than he's had great days in the last couple of years, in terms of injuries. But if he's in form and his body holds out, he is a dangerous man for anyone.
Yeah.
He got second at the last Giants Live, right?
Yeah.
Third. He had a great show.
Yeah, in Wembley, I think he.
Nobody qualified for this. Yeah, and Jerry's, I mean, he's if you have an event where sometimes his overhead can be hit or miss depending on how his body is. You know, his log, how heavy it is. Same with circus dumbbell. A deadlift, we don't even need to go into that. If any straight line moving event, he's right. You know, you see him at the Arnold, the frame, a heavy yoke. He's tops in the world. He's fast. It's when he has to do lateral movement. It's something new. He sometimes struggles with at this point. He doesn't want to be in a stone off. He's just had so many bicep issues.
Yeah.
I don't think it favors him very well. But yeah, he could win the whole group. Depends.
He needs
easily.
to be getting through before the stones, I would think.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But then Dwyer, first world's strongest man. I think he'll have fun out there. And Gabriel Penn, I don't know an awful lot about him, but I've seen some impressive things. I've been told he's exceptionally good on certain events.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't know what his pressing's like. Do you know? Sorry, I don't know what his stones are like. I was going to say.
He's very good at stones. I'd say stones would be a strong point. He competed, you know, they're both from Texas with Trey Mitchell as amateurs in the stones. And he beat Trey when they were amateurs in the stones at some contest. They traded back and forth. Wow. I think Trey's eclipsed him in that point, but, you know, and he's very much
stone lifter in these heats is so important.
Mm-hmm.
With the kind of value that they've put onto that last event, you know, I'd say it's very important. Yeah. I'd say with Pena, his log's probably just a touch under a 180. I mean, he's hit it, but I wouldn't count for something like that at Worlds. But you never know; he could show up. I've seen him do over 180-ish, you know, out of the rack, and recently, and it's looked like it's exploded. He has over a 900-pound deadlift, you know, so, you know, and very good at odd heights. I don't know what the exact deadlift setup is there. I'd say the moving events. Do you know if they have a squat or deadlift in that group at the moment? I mean, I know things.
I don't
change.
know. I think I think in this group, I'm guessing they have a squat. Or they just set Obi to the fire. Like they just
I'm thinking exactly the same. I mean, if that is a group of deadlifters, Obi's in trouble.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, you got 4 900-pound plus deadlifters in that group.
Mm-hmm.
So for Obi's sake, you hope it's a squat.
Yeah.
But even then, I know Jerry's a great squatter. Luke Richardson is a phenomenal squatter.
Yeah.
It's an interesting one.
It's going to be really, really difficult to pick. You know, they're all going to take. That's the thing. My personal belief on it is that you could throw pretty much any set of events at Luke at the moment, and he'll be good enough to be there or thereabouts all the way through, which is enough to get you through. It's just that how the rest of it follows in taking points off one another makes that next phase almost impossible to pick. I am going to say that when it comes to the pressing element, both Gabriel and Pa are going to find themselves, you know, a little bit behind the 8 ball, because when you've got Luke, granted, Luke's not posted up any monstrous numbers by like the sort of Hicksy standards, but then again, who does? But it's just a case of you look and just say the rest of it falls down to, again, who takes points off one another. You could easily say that by the time it all the way goes through to a stone, Obi, Pritchett, Pa, Penn, they could all go through. It's just almost impossible to actually pick because
it's a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun. That's
the great thing when you look at all these groups. And as a fan, you know, I've gone to World's Strongest Man 11 times as a competitor. I'm enjoying this year just watching as a fan. It's a lot more fun.
But I have to say I am going to go with my head and my heart and say the heat winner will be Luke Richardson.
Okay, all right. What about yourself?
I think momentum matters. I think it is a first Worlds. It's a whole different setup, as you know, than a normal contest. But I still think Luke makes sense in this one, and I think it's going to be a stone off between Jerry and Obi, who had a little bit of bad blood earlier this year, and that'll be fun. And
what's that one about?
Oh, the you shouldn't deadlift stuff on Rogan.
Oh, right.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think Jerry took that very well.
To be fair to OB, I remember watching that. He wasn't saying you shouldn't deadlift as a strongman.
I know,
but yeah,
you know how things get.
Yeah.
So and maybe they could. So I like that angle. I don't like counting out the 2 rookies. But I think Worlds more than anything, experience matters. You know, there's 3 rookies in that group, right?
Yeah.
Like, so I think it's a stone off between Obi and Jerry. I think Obi has the edge, but I think with both of them, it kind of depends on who's healthy at that point.
Yeah. I agree.
Whose body holds up while they're loading stones. They both have some miles on them.
Yeah, and we saw Obi pull up last year after the first or second rep. So hopefully,
yeah. But then the year before he won it.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So Group 2, we've got, as it stands, Adam Bishop, Evan Singleton, Mikhail Shivlakoff, Kevin Ferris, and Mark Felix. How do you feel about this group?
Tough one. Yeah, I'd say I think Evan somehow, I don't know why we're 2 groups in, and it's hard to say that I think Adam's seated first, but Evans he's right there, and a lot of people could consider him the favorite in this group, and that's 2 straight groups where you have rookies going in. I think we're going to look back at this year in World's Strongest Man, and a lot of people that weren't really well known that end up being these household names would be like, that was all their first year.
Yeah.
It'll be another one of those years, which is fun. Shivlakoff's, he's always dangerous, but it seems like he underperforms at Worlds. He does so well at the Arnold. Worlds doesn't ever seem to be his day. He always gets right there. Issues like...
I always find with Shivlakoff, he starts the year brilliantly, and then he sort of starts to fall apart and break down a bit as the year goes on. And I think is his 6th World's Strongest Man. He never does that well at Worlds.
No, I don't. He's maybe been in the final at once.
Yeah, I think it's just the
maybe
longer
twice.
format. Some athletes, they just don't like that longer format. They prefer the 1-day or 2-day shows. The week-long shows for certain athletes and they can be great in the 1-day shows. They just don't seem to perform. And I don't know if he's just one of those guys, but this is the first year where he hasn't burnt himself out leading up to World's Strongest Man. So
other than that deadlift,
well,
probably still recovering.
He might still be recovering from that. That's very true, actually. But if he can pull it together, he's another dangerous athlete.
I think Shivlakoff is kind of like the Hulk in that respect, in terms of Hulk is always angry, Shivlakoff is always in pain. It's just that in a 1-day competition, he has enough to be able to get through it. But over the course of a week, it just takes its toll, because you can only put those niggles, because he does tear out a lot. There's always something that goes. Trying to mask that for a week, it's a bit telling, especially when, as the week goes on, it gets heavier and heavier and heavier. And it's one where you want him to be there. You want to watch him. It's just that if you had to use your head over your heart, you're going to say that the young blood here are going to just push him a little bit too hard. Yeah. And there's some hungry boys in there. I know we've mentioned Bish, the experienced man, and someone who is as dialed in as you can get. Evan is kind of the rough diamond, but Christ, he's the fuel on the fire at the moment. But Kevin Ferris has buried himself away since last year, and he will have a monstrous desire to show what he is capable of doing, and also the effort he's put in because of how he went out. People forget how well he's actually done. He did very well at the Giants Live as well, without, the whole thing of travelling last minute and, coming into an end of the season show. Kevin's a really very talented strongman. He's gutsy as hell. He's put on some, for him, he's put on some serious timber because he was a 105, and, he's not the biggest guy in the world, but his numbers have shot up much like Evans. That it's going to be tough. I'm going to say Fee and Shivlakoff, for all the experience, I just see the youth in this one pushing them into a place of where it's just going to get a little bit too hot.
Yeah, Mark Felix is a bit of an enigma. Sometimes I look at him and think, there's no way he can do well in this contest.
Yeah.
And he just surprises you. And Mark, with something like a last man standing on the stones...
mate, he's incredible.
Dangerous.
Yeah.
No. The great stone lifter.
Yeah.
And Mark has certain events. I mean, Mark will probably say himself, he's not the most rounded strongman or well-rounded strongman. He's got events he's actually quite weak at. Some of his pressing events are weaker. He's got certain events he doesn't do that well at. But he also has some events that he is absolutely...
world-class still.
Not just world-class, the best. When it comes to grip events, he's exceptional. When it comes to a deadlift for reps, who's going to beat him in that group? Maybe an Adam Bishop.
Yeah.
No one else is touching him on a deadlift for rep. Grip, no one's touching him. Stones, he can hang with anyone.
Yeah.
When it's a stone for...
He's the best stone lifter in that group.
He's certainly up there.
Probably fair. I would say he is.
If I had to put my mortgage on it, I'd put Felix.
The only thing sometimes with Felix on a stone is he can get nervous and he starts looking over, particularly with a run. I think the fact that it's the man against man.
Yeah, he'll enjoy that.
I think so.
Yeah.
He's so laid back. He doesn't get back pump either. Mark Felix is not like a normal human. He works 12 hours as a plaster. He's constantly like that. I'd be in agony just trying to hold up an empty board. This guy's got about 12 kilos on it. We'll have like a tough training session, and I'll be like, I'll message him. Oh, you got any? I'm really sore. Got some DOMs today. He's like, oh, I feel fine. I'm going plastering today, and
I didn't realise he's from Latvia.
he's just a unique individual, and wouldn't it be incredible to see? I think he's 55 years old now.
Yeah.
To see 55-year-old Mark Felix get to another final of World's Strongest Man.
Yeah.
I'm not saying
a Hercules hold.
Well, yeah.
Do
Hercules hold.
Do you know what? If he manages to get in at a third and go into that stones, I'd say he's through. If he can nick third, he's through.
Yeah, he's so laid back as well. He won't put that pressure on himself like some of the youngsters will. Evan Singleton, as much as I love him, he's going to want this so much. Sometimes you can want things too much, and it can affect performance.
It has been something we've spoken about into that whole bit about, look, it's controlling the controllables, but everything is about what comes next. Once it's done, draw the line.
Sure.
And his understanding of it now is so much better. It's just that I think we do get caught up in the rapture of drop the match into the fuel, watch him go off. But I think one of the things that he has done brilliantly in this time is he's learned to cut it dead.
Yeah.
And that's great, because if you can conserve that energy, because if you said to me the Evan Singleton of last year was going into Worlds, by event 2 he's done.
Yeah,
mentally exhausted. The nervous energy would have wrecked him. But the person that he seems to be now, where he's comfortable in his own skin, he's a real threat. And do you know what? I'm with Cal on that one. Don't rule him out winning that group.
I wouldn't at all.
Bish is the favourite, granted, but Evan has every single possibility of winning that group.
I totally agree. I think it's going to be a good battle, Group 2. I mean, like we say, we don't know that these are the groups. So This is just a bit of fun with what we were told today. We'll probably be doing this again tomorrow, but it's a bit of fun. But so if you had to pick then, who are you picking the top 2 guys from Group 2?
Singleton, Bishop.
Yeah, I'd say that's the easy, fair pick on that too. I think if this is a circus dumbbell deadlift group, I think Mark has a real good shot. Circus dumbbell, he could maybe get some reps. Log, I think he's going to dig too big of a hole.
Like always, things will come down to events. Once we know the events, we'll probably change our minds again. But
of course. Yeah. But yeah, I'd say Bishop Singleton is the fair. But Kevin Ferris, I think it's hard to count out.
Yeah.
As well.
This next group, for me, when I saw it, when people say, death group at World's Strongest Man, this is the group that is just ridiculously stacked. And a lot of new names, but, this is a stacked group. You've got Tom Stoltman, who they're looking at the way it's kind of seeded. They've seeded him as the number 1. You've got Alexei Novikov, Trey Mitchell, Gav Bilton, and Maxime Boudreau, who, Maxime as a first timer at World's Strongest Man, you're going to see him as one of the other guys and be like, yeah, I don't want that guy in my group.
No.
He's again going to come down to events, but Jesus, he's strong.
Do you know what? I feel a little bit for Gav here. I really do. It's one of the things. That whole sort of thing. Be careful what you wish for.
I think Gav will be absolutely.
He'll love this. He'll love it. But in terms of being dumped into a group of where that is pure immersion.
No, this will be perfect for Gav. This will be like no pressure. I can just go and perform.
Yeah, and I hope so. I hope he sees it that way. I
mean, my first World's Strongest Man, I was chucked in with Mariusz Pudzianowski, Brian Shaw, Harold Haugen, Brian Siders, who was the world powerlifting champion, and Louis-Philippe Jean.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved it.
It's rough.
Yeah.
It was a rough first World's Strongest Man, But I loved it because there was no pressure. I could just go and perform, and I ended up winning the squat. And if he can go in there and perform well against those guys, he's going to come away with a load of experience, a load of confidence, and it's just going to make him work hard for next year. And I think he's got that right attitude to take it that way as well.
Yeah, I kind of hope he has like the Zaki effect for him. I know a lot of people looked at Zaki Malusi last year and just went, who the fuck is this guy? Why is he there? But you kind of knew that Zaki, again, he's another one. If you open the door a little bit for him, he's going to find another. It's unfortunate he got injured, but what he went on to do post Worlds was fantastic because he really jumped up a good sort of 10-20%. Gav, I feel, he's got a title now, which is good. He's got UKs. And again, it's the same thing. I don't think it's the real benefit is going to be here. It's going to be when he's back, and it's just like, right, okay, now I know.
Yeah, this is all about experience for Gav, and that's not putting him down. I really think he's going to go there. This is a bonus for him this year, probably ahead of his schedule of when he thought he'd get to World's Strongest Man.
8 years ago, he's led on a bed. He's not. He's as far as he's concerned, he's a reserve still.
Yeah. So let's talk about the other 4 guys in this group, because that is 4 incredibly talented strongmen, all in one group. Tom
Stoltman's still a boy child. He's still a baby. Oh. It's just that he's in this 7 foot, God knows, what is he weighing when you saw him? 175?
He's 175 kilos.
175, and he's only just lost the abs.
I mean, I'm 155 right now, and he made me look tiny.
Yeah. I saw you in
Probably
the pool.
has him in the morning, huh?
He's looking huge. He's looking powerful. He's also, the one thing I noticed with Tom that I really noticed when I went up and spent time with him, and I've noticed this over the last year, but when I went up and spent some time with him, he's a man now.
Yeah.
And he's not that shy little boy that, I've competed with 3-4 years ago. This guy believes he is destined to win this title.
Yeah.
He believes he's good enough. He's not intimidated by anyone. He's got great people around him. He's working with good coaches. He's working with good nutritionists. And Tom's the kind of person, you just tell him what to do, and he goes, yes, and does it. And if you've got the right people telling him what to do, he's a dangerous man.
Yeah.
He's got that support from Luke. They're the only 2 people out there that have someone else there for them. I think that's going to be vital this year with the fact that no one can take coaches and partners and et cetera, with them. Those 2 have still got each other to rely on just to help bring that little bit extra when you need it. And I think Tom, the only event I can see Tom throughout the whole contest, I think he may still have a slight weakness with, is the grip.
Yeah.
And that is my only concern for him. I think everything else, his squatting is up, his deadlifting is up, his pressing is up, he's moving well, he's bigger and stronger, but still just as athletic as he's always been. Atlas Stones, if he is, for some reason, doesn't cruise through to the final and he's got to do the Stones, who the hell wants to go against him on an Atlas Stone?
Well, to be fair, though, that you still have, in that group, you actually do have the wild card in Trey.
I don't even think Trey can match him. I've beaten Trey at Stones before. I've never come close to beating Tom at Stones.
Yeah.
He's.
But have you beat Trey when it's just rep for rep? I think it's a little different setup.
Yeah, that's the thing.
I would agree with you there, but you say that the only way I could see Tom not going through would just be making a silly mistake.
Yeah.
Trey is an unbelievable stone lifter, so don't think I'm kind of sitting here thinking he's not. But I've never seen someone lift stones the way Tom does.
No. He is a complete
freak.
Him
a 200-kilo stone, it's still just a little toy for him.
Yeah.
He's not even gonna tire doing that stone. If I was going to go up against anyone in the world, the last person I'd want it to be would be Tom.
You hit on an interesting point as well when you said that Tom now is a man. I'm completely agree. Like the change in his demeanour, the change in his overall attitude, and also probably the comfort levels with his own self. If you take the man that he is now and put it in last year's body, he's on the podium. I truly believe it. I truly believe that the kid that walked through the airport that lost his stuff, that had to beg, borrow and steal, and everyone helped out to try and just get him some kit, and he still gets there and puts on one hell of a performance. You just take the mindset of that boy now and put it into Tom from last year. He's on the podium at Worlds. The difference being now is he's got a whole new body again. He's stronger.
He's stronger. He's way stronger than he was last time.
And now he's calmer. Now he's more sort of dialed into what he's doing. And again, the one thing, he really believes it now. That's a danger, man.
I mean, I haven't seen that much of Maxime, but I know what I have seen has been very, very impressive.
Yeah.
And my kind of heart thinks that if it comes down to a stone, if Tom goes through as the winner, then I'm like, well, no one's going to beat Trey on the stones.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the big question: is if Tom just puts the foot down on the gas and makes sure he's into the final.
Yeah.
I can't see anyone other than Trey winning the stone.
Yeah, because that'll have a hoodoo. I don't. In terms of Novikov, as sort of bullish as you can be about it, the manner in which it went, because Novikov leaves nothing to chance. He doesn't leave anything in the tank. The outright truth of it is he started to break. He started to break. There was nothing left, and you've got this, giant toddler the other side of you that's just getting going. And he was building a head of steam, because you stood there with like the rest of the guys, and you got like your Derek Poundstones and stuff stood around going, my God, he's found a gear now. Yeah. Just as one started to go, the other was started to push. But in terms of what you said about Maxime, there's something about that lad when it comes into like proper strongman. Yeah. Just sort of like your Rocky IV camp, just get on with it. You can see him dragging some tree behind him, just coming out. What's that? Oh, I was just going to chop that for firewood. Don't worry about it. Yeah, it's 3:30 in the morning. But he's the real deal. So I'm looking forward to seeing him go, and it's going to be interesting to see how they sort of stack up and where the likes of Gav, Trey, and all how the battles unfold. Because it really is going to be rep for rep now on all these things.
It's an extremely hard group to pick, and I think I'm going to have to wait and see what the final set of events are for them.
It matters a lot.
In terms of as a winner for that group, Tom. Because Tom I see on the podium, I feel I have to put him through.
If this group stays the same and Tom gets through, I think whoever comes second in that group is going to be fucked by the final.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's the problem with that group.
I think on this one, I think Tom's the favorite, but I think out of this whole contest, Novikov's being overlooked the most. He probably has one of the best pedigrees of anyone competing out of all 25 guys. Maybe just because he almost beat Brian in his heat.
Yeah.
Last year. He's won 2 Arnold qualifiers. He won them back-to-back, beating, Mateus, a couple, in those, like, he is
the dude you look over your shoulder from. I agree with that. He is definitely the guy you look over your shoulder, because he's the
other thing with him this year is that he hasn't destroyed his body competing week in, week out.
How many contests did he do last year? Like 50, he said?
He did the ridiculous amount of contests
seriously
last year. But this year, he's just been training hard back home. Mm-hmm. We don't know how good he is. I think he's only 23 years old, something like that.
Yeah, he's still a kid.
He's still a baby. These guys at these younger ages improve very, very quickly. Who's to say he isn't going to be better than ever? His body feeling
or get worse quickly. That's the other thing. We don't know.
Because it's the reason you want to keep going. The reason you want, maybe you just built that way, and while you've got that sort of youth and your body holds up, the reason you get better, the reason you feel better, is because you have those competitions in your belt and you like going from one to the next. It's not unheard of. And certainly by his practice in how he went through last year, as much as he pushed, and as Cal said, alluded to, so 50-odd comps, it's not like he failed at many of them.
No. He had an incredible year last year. Yeah. He really did. Anyway.
I'd say he's the rookie of the year last year.
Well, without question. Group 4, we've got JF Caron, Graham Hicks, Avas Shamastelis. I think I said that close enough, better than
me.
Heathor Melstead from Iceland, and Bobby Thompson from the States. Another tough group, guys.
That's a hell of a group. I actually think, in terms of taking the whole thing of taking points off one another, I actually find that the hardest one to pick.
Yeah. JF always ends up in these battle groups, doesn't it seem like? I don't think JF, he's always in the finals. He gets 5th, 4th, whatever, but it never seems like he just cruises through a heat. He always gets a group like this.
Yeah, it shows how good a strongman he is as well.
Definitely.
I mean, I always talk about JF because I think he's probably the most underrated strongman out there. When you look at his pedigree and who he's beaten and what he's won and what he performs on a regular basis, he is one of the top strongmen on the planet.
Yeah.
He's just not a Thor or a Kilishkovsky or so. He's not someone that's won one of those absolute major titles. But every single show, he's been there or thereabouts. He performs well consistently. And the one thing I will say about JF is his weakness is things like truck pulling.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's no truck pull in the final this year.
No.
That's good for him.
JF's the dude as well. If you want dollars for points, you put a few on him, because you're pretty much guaranteed you're going to get a decent return out of him. And that's testament to not just the longevity in the sport, but also the standard in which he's kept himself all the way through. It's not like there's a peak and a trough. He's been pretty consistent throughout all his career.
I'll tell you as well, I spoke to him recently. He said he's bigger and stronger than ever and feeling the most confident he ever has.
Yeah.
And I believe him when he says it. Some people, when they tell me stuff, they're just trying to...
It's Fight Club.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm bigger and stronger. Well, you're meant to be. That's the gag.
JF's not that kind of person.
No, he's not a braggart, is he? So
he's never needed to. He's quite happy being the underdog. He's quite happy going under the radar. And you're going to get a solid, consistent performance. A couple of years ago, you go back to early Jeff, his pressing was a little bit of a weakness. His pressing isn't a weakness anymore. He's a good, solid performer. Always, he's not one of these guys in the gym that you see lifting the crazy numbers. But when it comes to competition, he always picks up points. He always gets good results. And, I'm expecting JF to win this group.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be there to be the favourite because, one, the experience, and two, just passed. You'd be foolish to write him off. It's the next bit. I don't think he wins by much because when you look, you've got a hell of a name in Graham Hicks coming up next, but there's a massive threat in Bobby Thompson. A huge, huge threat in Bobby Thompson because, again, we talk about the rookies and you look at his performances of late, but also probably the self-belief he has. And I think that makes him a real handful. He's on home turf. But he's also, again, he's got a lot of people backing him. And that'll go a long way for someone like Bobby. As much as we have our 11th man in terms of the whole Brit setup, which will help, it will make a big difference. The fact that there's so much camaraderie between the sort of British lads. Bobby, much like some of the Americans, they'll have their own. And they've got a guy in there that a lot of those boys were champion.
What do you reckon, Kale?
Yeah, I'd pick JF to win it. Graham... he's going to be right there, but he seems to have his good events and his events that, he excels and then he loses too many points in some at the world's level. At least it seems like he just got he's so statically strong. He hasn't had enough time to build that athletic base back up, Well,
he's been training with Felix, hasn't he? So
he's been looking good. He tore his calf. Okay. He had some calf injury pulling a truck, and truck pulls notoriously been the one event that's probably held him back at World's Strongest Man as well. I think if his calf holds up and he can put in a good truck performance.
The thing I worry about with Graham is getting into the stones against some of the guys. I'd say he could easily be top 2 or 3. Maybe if he goes against someone like Bobby, who's also very similar, like Graham, statically strong, maybe, just some of the moving events not quite up there on, and stones he could get through. I'm going to pick Avers as my second. I think he's going to win the stone off against either Graham or Bobby. I don't know much about Ithor. I've heard. I don't know much about Avers. Some people I trust have been like, if you look at these events,
he's good.
They suit him.
He's
fast. He's athletic. Yeah. The finals events, I think if he gets in, he could upset some stuff from what I hear. And hey, these probably aren't even going to be the heats, but you got to throw something out there, right?
Oh yeah, and he's a very laid back character. He won't feel too much pressure, and he performs consistently well in the Champions League.
Yeah,
he's always doing well in those shows.
he's another one where it's a trade, and he loves it. You know, I put him and Maxime in that same sort of bracket of how they sort of go about their job. They have a professionalism about them, but it's that whole thing again of, you know, take what you do really seriously, don't take yourself too seriously. But you can tell a lot by the manner in which they go about it. Ivars is all business when it comes to comp, but he's brilliant at being able to switch it off. Again, danger man. I don't know anything about the Icelandic dude. If Hicksy gets to the final, though, if Hicksy can get to the final,
dangerous there.
That's how I think Hicksy.
I really hope he does.
I think Hicksy is better in the final than he is in the heats. That being said, I think Hicksy's a great stone lifter, and I think you know, if it comes down to a stone,
he's good at him.
I can, you know, he trains on one of those the
stone of steel.
The stone of steel, that's it, and he's exceptionally good at them. You know, I think the fact that it's stone man against man is better for him than a stone run.
Yeah. And
I think, you know, Hicksy will just keep plopping that thing over. He's mentally tougher than he used to be as well. There's a confidence in Hicksy now. He's sort of happy. He's enjoying doing this now. Sometimes with Hicksy, you watch him and you just think, man, he's strong, but he looks like he doesn't enjoy it.
He still has the same sort of grey cloud look.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, but
you get a little smile at the corner.
I think I think he now knows how to handle that persona. The actual real Graham underneath now is a much happier and actually a much hungrier guy than before.
I'm gonna go with JF and Hicksy just because I've got to back Hicksy. He's a mate of mine. You know, I'm happy to see him back there, but.
Yeah, I want to see
less
in the final
than you will.
I think it's going to be a good battle between the guys. Finally, group number 5, we have Brian Shaw, Luke Stoltman, Irvin Toots, Terry Hollands, and unfortunately, we've lost Wesley Claiborne. So, I mean, like we said, these groups are all going to change, but this is what we know for now. So it looks like Nick Best will be replacing Wesley. If that stays the same, what's your thoughts, guys?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a dogfight between Luke and Brian. I think it really, if it's again, I think Luke could win this heat if it's log and squat. I think he's got a better squat than a deadlift.
Do you think Luke beats Brian on the squat?
I think he loses less points overall.
Yeah, I can see.
I don't think he would.
I can see Luke
Brian.
Stoltman winning this group.
I was going to say Brian's a good squatter.
No, Brian's going to win the squat, but I think
Brian though. You'd normally think Brian would want to win the squat easily in the heats.
Yes.
I don't think he gets that option this time round.
No, I don't think so. But I think Luke could beat him in log if that's a circus dumbbell. I think Brian has the edge. He's phenomenal at circus dumbbell. Log, Luke, I don't think many are beating him in a log right now out of anyone. Irvin's going to steal points. And Terry, it depends on, Terry's one like Felix. He either shows up and it looks like, the Terry who's, podiumed and, is world class, or sometimes it's just not his day.
Terry in that group is the pain in the ass for someone like Luke.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because Terry is exceptional at things like truck pulling still. He's got certain events he's very, very good at. Maybe even deadlift. Terry at the moment, his deadlift's been creeping back up. Maybe Terry could beat Luke on a deadlift at the moment. Luke's deadlift, Luke definitely wants a squat in that group, I think.
Yeah, definitely. It's a tough one for Luke, this group. I'd say he's seated high here overall out of everyone, but you look, and especially you had Nick Best, he's a good deadlifter. I don't know. I think he's been improving. He had some injuries, but he's kind of in that same group with Terry. He has so much experience. Yeah. I mean, you give him like a max distance carry. He did that elephant shield, and he just roasted everyone.
He's unbelievable at those type of events.
Yeah. So there's stuff in here that, Nick could just really, he could be that person that gets in between. You just go like, could you just, come on.
I think the thing with Brian, you can throw any event at Brian. He's going to score well.
Absolutely.
Brian's not going to drop points. He might come second on an event, but he's not going to be coming,
fourth, fifth.
Yeah.
No.
He's too well prepared. He's too professional. Yes, in the final, people can be, when it's the absolute, all the best guys, but Brian, he's a very consistent performer and he's got so much experience. I really, I can't see Brian not getting through that group. That, you know, if people think that, then they're absolutely nuts. I think Brian is the favourite to get through, and then I think, you know, I'm hoping Luke gets through, but I think with Irvin Toots in there, the experience from Terry and Brian, it's going to be a battle. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go with my heart on this one and say actually Luke takes the group. I think Luke will just take the group. There's just something, I don't think the whole Brian thing's written yet. I really don't. And I'm not saying that that's him done at all. No way, shape or form. It's just that, do you know what? With all the talk of him, it opens up the door for the rogue athlete. And that rogue athlete in that group is Luke Stoltman. He is such a danger man.
I actually think Luke, again, is another one. The final is better for him.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think the final, Luke's challenging.
Yeah.
He just needs to get through the group. And that's what the groups are about. You've got to do what you need to do to get through. And I think he will. And I think then it all resets in the final. And, you know, it's a separate it's like two competitions, World's Strongest Man. That's the tough thing with the groups. You've got to get through the groups first. Then it's all starting from scratch. And you've got a different set of events ahead of you. And, you know, it's a new competition. And that's one thing I've always said. And, you know, there's so many strongmen that are excellent strongmen. But a lot of us are good at certain events. You can give, you know, and I'll take myself as an example, but you put me in my prime with the right set of events,
yeah,
I'm dangerous for anyone. But you can put me in with the wrong set of events where I become, you know, pretty average. It's guys like Brian, Zadrunas, Thor, those kind of guys that you can chuck any events at them. That's why they go down as the greatest of all time, you know, because there is no weakness, and they win countless competitions again and again and again.
Yeah, their trough from a peak is third place. It's not sixth or not making it out of a group. It's third. That's disappointment.
Yeah.
You know, I really hope I get to see the best out of Terry. I really hope that he has a few moments in this where he shows people what an amazing athlete he is and what he's done for such a long period of time, very much like Fee, very much like Nick. But Terry has been, not on purpose as well, but Terry's always been, Christ, he's been on the Christmas TV as much as the Queen. You know, but you're so used to seeing him, and he's such that recognisable face where he's never been an athlete to push that. He's never been the guy that seeked attention, but he's had so much of it, and he has represented the sport, you know, quite well in the sense of, like, he's drawn so many people in. You look at his following, but it would be great to see, because of all the, you know, the flack that you get at times. You know this bit yourself. It'd be nice to, you know, to sort of just show why you've been there for so many years, well over a decade, like Felix, because, you know, between the two of them, Christ, how many, was it over 30 appearances? Is it 30 appearances?
It's not quite, but it's closing in on that.
Yeah. It's just ridiculous.
This would be Terry's 10th final, right? If he made it.
If he made the final, he'd be his 10th
yeah.
I think that's his goal, to make 10 finals. Yeah. That's an unbelievable achievement. And I think Felix is competing in his 15th World's Strongest Man. Wow. Not as many finals as Terry, but just to be there 50. How many guys would love to be at World's Strongest Man one time? You know, think of the guys that just want to get there once.
Yeah.
And he's now going at 15th.
You got the likes of, and the likes of Gav, Maxime, you know, Melstro, Irvin. They're all, you know, and then you've got, this is what I mean about their, like, the importance of some of these guys, like your Brian, stuff like that, because you're sat around these people that they're God status, really, because of what they've done. You've not just been there, you're part of it. You're really, really part of it.
I feel part of it. SBD sent me a T-shirt. Yeah. I just got to say thank you to Ben from SBD. So very, very
nice
kind. It was nice.
I got mine the other day.
Excellent. Yeah, it's really nice. So Marcus, well, why are you wearing yours, see? Where are you representing?
I didn't want to match.
Marcus got upset because I told him he's outgrown his top earlier, so he went and changed.
Yeah. SBD, if you do actually want to send me one, which would be very kind of you do, it's 3XL. Apparently 2XL is a bit tight.
I think that was only XL that you had on earlier, mate. I'm going to hand over to you to tell us about this year's America's Strongest Man.
Yeah, this year, you know, World's kind of cherry-picked a couple of the athletes they wanted: Wesley Claiborne, Gabriel Penn, Bobby Thompson, et cetera. So it was looking like it was going to be one of the biggest, most stacked America's Strongest Mans we've had in a long time. And I think that's due to the lockdown. They've just been cooped up. There's been no competition. So it's like, here's one we can compete at. And they all wanted to go. And it was still very talented. And I think, a lot of your viewers, in the international scene, you probably have a lot more people in the UK than I do. They might not recognize some of these names, but they're names that they will recognize in the coming years. They're very talented. The depth of talent in America in the pro division is probably, we could argue it's probably the best in the world overall depth. If we go down, UK's definitely, it's one or the other, but they're right there. And, this year it's put on by Strongman Corporation. You can go back on their YouTube page. There's a stream of the whole event. There's no commentary with it. It's just kind of like a camera in the corner. But, we're used to stuff like that in Strongman where it's not quite how you want it, but it held the whole time and it didn't freeze. So that's a plus, right?
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah. So, basically there was, I think there was 6 events, 3 each day. We had a circus dumbbell for reps at 240 pounds for the heavyweights. And I believe 210 for the 105s, which were also competing. We also had America's Strongest Woman, which consists of the 3 weight classes, lightweight, middleweight, and heavyweight. So that's, 140 pounds, which is, what's that in kilos, like 63-ish?
Yeah, 63 kilos.
And then about 81 kilos, and then heavyweight. Yeah, there's a good amount of athletes. I heard that in the women's division, the top 3 winners all qualified for the Arnold Pro, as Donna Moore.
Okay. Sure.
And everyone always is trying to vie for. Of course, that was announced at the meeting. I think, the athletes would have maybe signed up a little bit more if they knew that was on the table.
So was there some girls missing that would normally compete, some of the ladies?
Yeah, I think there was a lot less turnout in the women's divisions than the men's. There was, the 105s had, I think, 11 or 12 guys, which is big for a pro show. I think 9 or 10 in the heavyweights, and each, women's division, I think there's 4 in the heavyweights and about 6, maybe 4 or 5 lightweights and about 8 middleweights. Middleweights tend to be the most. I think maybe some of the guys are a little more apt to travel during all this, a little more risk adverse. That would be my guess. I don't really know, but just, a hunch. But yeah, we had Travis Ortemeyer was competing. He's probably the best known person there. Of course, he had a shoulder injury. And, I picked him to win. I was just looking at these events. They're very dynamic. You have a basket deadlift for reps. You should know Travis with the lever on a deadlift is.
I know what Travis is like, and he's such a competitor, and he's looked very, very good. Almost like, it's always hard to tell when people are training, and it's different to competition. But from what I've seen of him in the gym, he's been looking fantastic. I did see his comment about his shoulder just not being ready, and Travis used to be a great dumbbell presser, so you can see there's clearly something holding him back on that event. But I was expecting a big performance from Travis, if I'm totally honest.
Yeah, I was too. And, the dumbbell's 240 pounds, which is 107, 108, or 110 kilos pretty much. So it's a heavy dumbbell. I don't know what the world's dumbbell is, but it might be heavier than what we're going to see in a couple of days. Usually worlds is about 100 for reps in the qualifiers, I believe. Yeah, so he missed that, which just, set him on a bad start. Looked good in the basket deadlift. It's on a lever with a front bar. Basically, it was like when they drop the kegs in,
sure,
but without dropping them. Got, I think, tied for second. Marcus Crowder, he won our amateur nationals, I believe, 2017 or so, and he did I think he did some powerlifting for a little bit, and he's back. Yeah, I think he won the circus dumbbell with 5 reps, which it's a good amount in 60 seconds. And it seemed like a tough dumbbell. The numbers were down across all weight classes from what I'd see. And then in the basket deadlift, he won that as well with 12. A couple other guys getting 11, including Travis, who looked good. And then I think it's just mean when you look at event selection, when you do max rep deadlift right into a Husafelt stone for max distance, like your posterior change fried, and then you got to carry that thing as long as far as you could carry a 180 pound Husafelt stone. And I think Travis, I believe, said as well that affected him. Just he was just a little too fried from the deadlift. Maybe with his shoulder, he's just not as conditioned to do events back to back like that.
Yeah.
And looking at this, first place, I believe, was Tyler Cotton. He's competed in some SCL shows, and he has a brother as well. So that's also a pro, I believe. So it's another brother setup. We need
to set up a World's Strongest Brothers contest. I think we can do it now. There's about 4 or 5 sets of brothers that are competing right now that could all
at a high level
push each other. So that would be good to see.
Yeah, Tyler's regarded very, very well this side of the pond as well. He's, I believe, his coach is Simon Yates, the guy that helps Bish out. So he took him under his wing, and early signs. He just said this boy's got so much potential. Where he's at the moment, he's already doing SCL, but I think he's pretty convinced that that's a holding ground for him really than anything else. He's got a long way to go.
Yeah, he's a very impressive athlete. He had another good showing, I believe, in the sandbag toss. I think, he got second in that. And then Casey Garrison, who's a pro here from California, former, I think he played minor league baseball, and he trains people, a baseball player. So he's very athletic. He didn't do as well in the circus dumbbell and the basket deadlift, but then on day 2, he won. He came out and just obliterated each event. He got, second in arm over arm. It was textbook technique. And watching it, they did arm over arm with like a pretty heavy U-Haul truck, big shipping, truck. I think they said it was like 18,000 pounds. But it was moving pretty good for that. I think it was the floor was conducive to it moving well. And Casey went up and, he's leaning back. He's looking so dynamic and athletic. It's textbook form. And then this brute of a guy, I think he's just got second or won our amateur nationals. Josh Hatfield, big guy, big step, and he just rode it, just all arms. I think he leaned back twice and beat Casey for first. It's like, you do everything right, and then sometimes this guy just comes along and he just I don't know how he was getting that much momentum just with basically his arms and his back on the thing, but it was it quite a bowl.
Was it an indoor contest? Or
okay. Everything's. I think you guys are headed back towards a lockdown. I hear something like that.
Yeah, we're back in a lockdown now. Yeah.
And here in the United States, we're it's a big country. It's so mixed up from where it was. I'm back in California. I was in the South for a while, and how everything is. It's just so different. This contest was down in Georgia, and pretty much everything's open. It was at a convention. Okay. Fans, everything.
So you had fans and everything at the show?
No, it was like a expo, like, booths.
Like Body Power over here, for instance.
Yeah. I don't think it's big, but it's, I think it was originally planned to be in California a couple months ago, but was shut down, due to, the current state of the world. So there's, everything was just allowed, just pretty much just as normal. I think, everyone's as far as I could see it, people wearing masks, cleaning equipment and stuff, but not what we're used to this year for sure. It's a little bit back towards normalized, and hopefully that was all fine from it. But it's just interesting how different everything is, different places.
America's a strange, with every state having different rules, it is quite strange. Yeah. Obviously for us, it's pretty much this, we're all in lockdown over here again. I managed to go up and see the Stoltmans last week, but I had to be back. I had to cut my trip short to make sure I was back in time. Frustrating, but I'm glad I'm not in charge of the country. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
I wouldn't.
Same here.
I'd much rather just focus on lifting weights than worry about sorting those issues out. But
it's hard enough to look through these spreadsheets and figure out what happened.
Yeah. So give us a rundown of the top 3 from each class.
Yeah. In Marcus Crowder ended up winning the heavyweights, with Tyler Cotton getting second. Okay. Marcus had 42.5 points, 38.5 for Tyler. Jose Baez, you might remember him. He competed at the LA Fit Expo against Larry Wheels, and was the person who placed above him to kind of spoil that whole story of then, Larry going to the Arnold Amateur, etc. He ended up in third, just a 1.5 off of Tyler. And Casey Garrison, he's not in the top 3. He got 4th, but he's 1 point off and had a, not a great first day.
Okay.
And it's fun to watch those, when people just blitz a second day. In the middleweight men, Anthony Deal, 105s, he kind of was in control the whole contest and ended up winning 61.5 points. Nicholas Camby, who's been around for a long time, done a lot of Arnold amateurs, etc., got 57 for second. He was right there a couple times, couldn't capitalize when he could have. In the sandbag toss, they both got 3 bags, when one person could have, he could have maybe overtook Anthony, but didn't. And Jesse Nelson, who lives in West Virginia, he got 53. And this guy, he's a 105, but he has like over a 400-pound strict press. Like he has some, like if you just look up some of his log pressing videos, and he's no leg drive doing over 400 pounds.
400 pounds for the English viewers is over 180 kilos. 182 kilos is 400 pounds, and that's a serious strict press.
And I don't think he's originally from West Virginia either, but he has a beard that's down to his ankles, and he just kind of looks like he just came out of the mountain and just can press like he's just been pressing timber in the woods his whole life, and it's carried over. And then in the lightweight women on that side, we had 4 athletes competing, and Rebecca Lorch, she was in control pretty much the whole contest. Very, very good athlete. She got 20 points overall. Laura Anderson, she's been around a long time. She's about pretty much the exact opposite body type of Rebecca, who tend to be shorter athletes in the lighter categories, but she's tall, and you'd think she's a distance runner looking at her, but phenomenal grip, good. She got 17, and then 16 for barbell Joel, as we call her, Joel Petsky, 16 points. So pretty close overall, kind of a little bit of back and forth there. Middleweight women tends to be the most tight. I think there's about 8 athletes in that. Gabriel, I'm going to butcher this last name, but hey, that's what we do, right? Bergholzer or something like that. She got 31.5 points. Abigail Deal, 31, so just a half point. And Aaron Walcott got 30.5, so it was really close between those 3 all weekend. We got a 1.5 or 1 point from first to third right there. And they had a sandbag medley to end it, and Deal and Walcott were like, it was within 1/10 of a second with the last bag. And that's, decided second or first, basically, second or third. So that's always fun. In the heavyweights, my personal longtime client, Jessica Fifthand, ended up winning.
Nice.
She was pretty dominant performance all week. I think she had 18 points to 14. There's 4 athletes. She had a 5-point lead going into the last event, which is always nice as a coach. You go, okay, just do whatever you want. Yeah. You don't need to load that. They had a 270-pound sandbag as the 4th sandbag and a carry and load. She didn't do that one. No. Yeah, but
did any of the ladies do it?
Yeah, one did, and I didn't get to watch this on the live stream, but Jessica told me she just kind of picked it up like it was the same size as all the others.
Wow.
So what's that? 130-ish kilos or so?
Yeah. Yeah. that's impressive. Let's get that into just going back a few years. At World's Strongest Man, we were looking at 120 kilo sacks. They have gone up in recent years, so we're up 150 now normally at World's Strongest Man. But when I started at World's Strongest Man, the sacks that we were loading were 120 kilos.
Yeah. And it's the 4th, and it was a carry and load. Like the last one, they didn't have to carry very far, but they loaded to about chest height, about 4 feet.
Sure.
And in second ended up Corey Butler, and then Amanda Kelly mentioned with the sandbag load put her over the top to eke out third. It's always interesting to see like who's just like an absolute freak at certain events like that, and you never know really. Yeah. Some of these people aren't as well known. I think she's a newer pro in the women's division, but yeah, it was good overall. I caught a lot of it on the live stream. There were some good performances, and it was good to see. I think any show that happens and everyone's safe is a win this year.
Yeah. So we were talking a bit about it before we came on air. Why do you think a lot of the top Americans don't compete at America's Strongest Man?
Because I think, you know,
go on.
Yeah, I think when it comes down to being a pro, it comes down to, you know, everyone's looking, what's this show leads me to this, right? You know, where it leads you, what it qualifies you for, how much money there is, and how much notoriety you're going to get. You know, is it on television? Is there a big crowd? How much prestige is there to the title? And I think it's starting to build back up. There's a lot more promotion effort put into America's Strongest Man this year, but it really died down. I was involved behind the scenes, you know, working with the people at like 2014 and stuff. And it was kind of trending down at that point, but not bad. Then after, there was a big in between 2014 and now, it's just kind of been like an afterthought contest, which is a shame. You know, and it doesn't qualify. At 2014, it would still qualify people for World's Strongest Man. Colin would take the top 3. And then I think there was a little bit of stuff over, you know, whatever, you know, how it happens. And then that kind of went away. And that hurt it, you know, because if it qualifies you for Worlds.
You used to have like Derek Poundstone always, you know, I remember he'd fly back from World's Strongest Man and still compete in America's a few days later if he had to. He was desperate to be crowned America's Strongest Man. It's a shame that, you know, and this isn't taking anything away from the guys that won.
No.
But when you look at some of the American athletes, you have so many great athletes over there. And in the women's category as well. You know, when I look at the lineup at the Arnolds and you see some big names missing then from America's Strongest Woman as well. So it's interesting because most countries, even like Thor in Iceland, he wants to win his national title. The British title is a really prestigious title. I think you definitely need to get the winner of America's Strongest Man back into being invited to World's Strongest Man. It should be.
Yeah, I think
it should be a big title. It really should.
Yeah, it should be one of the biggest titles in strongman with the depth of talent. I mean, you know, we're naming name after name who's some of the best strongmen in the world, and you still had 9 really strong guys competing that, you know, from the guys who got plucked to go to Worlds from Americas that, you know, ended up not competing because it was just a couple days. Any of those guys a lot of them could have been intermixed and you wouldn't have noticed in the heats. They might do better. They might do just about the same.
The standard of the guys is incredible. I mean, like we said, Travis Ortmeyer was competing at this year's show and he placed quite lowly, to be quite honest, you know?
Yeah.
And Travis is someone that's been 5th at World's Strongest Man. He's been 4th at the Arnolds. He's won countless internationals in his prime. Might not be at his absolute peak anymore, but on most events, he's still an exceptional athlete. And you've got plenty of guys that, you know, if I'm totally honest, I haven't heard of that are still world-class athletes.
We had at our amateur nationals, which was like 2 weeks ago, there was a guy, the last event was a deadlift, max deadlift, and they, you know, rising bar, you keep going. A guy pulled 400 kilos, you know, 5th event, 2-day contest. They did a, you know, Husafeld stone, everything. He pulled it like it was a warm-up. He got 4th in the whole contest.
Yeah.
He wasn't able to compete because he didn't get his pro card. Top 3 get their pro card. He's still an amateur.
I've noticed this in the States and over in the UK and other places as well. There's so many. I mean, social media makes it easier for us to see these freaks of nature, but there's so many talented athletes out there now. It's not like when I first started or when you guys, you know, first got into the sport. The standard across the board is so much higher. It's so much harder to get to that elite level because there's so much competition. And everywhere you look now, someone's pulling 400 kilos, 900 pounds, whatever it might be, putting 440 overhead and just these crazy numbers.
But isn't that the whole reason why the standard across the board now is shot up and people are looking and saying, look, you know, go back to, you know, when I was born in 77 and you look at the weights that were used, look through the 90s and the weights that are used, they're similar to what I was doing in novice competitions. And then you get through to the early 2000s and they're similar to the masters. You know, the fact that you've now got this rise and, you know, so many quality athletes that do have comparable, you know, because the observation is there to be able to use social media to say, look, this is what I need to do. You're basically fast tracking people. And you look at the depth of talent in terms of overall athletes, those numbers now come through, because we can probably go back through a few years of worlds where you'd look at one or two athletes and you go, probably I'm not far off you.
Yeah.
You know, as a rank amateur, when you're looking at it, it's like a 120 log, and the heaviest stone is 140, and it's that helps the acceleration of the sport, and that's why you've got the thick end of it now.
That's a really good point you bring up, and it's something I put a video up just I think it just went up today, yesterday actually, talking about Brian Shaw and people saying if he wins this year, you know, there should be an asterisk next to his name, because I've seen people saying, you know, just give him the title. He's gonna, you know, he should walk it.
No.
If he wins it, you know, he doesn't deserve to be called a 5-time world's strongest man. I think those comments are ridiculous.
Yeah,
because every single athlete competing at World's Strongest Man this year is a fantastic strongman.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of competition there for him still to compete against. Yes, he's a favorite. Yes, he's going to go there as one of the, you know, maybe the favorite. But to say it's a given is just crazy with the talent that we've got right now. Yeah, that's it for this week. We obviously have World's Strongest Man starting in a couple of days. Next week, we'll be bringing up, you know, obviously more World's Strongest Man talk. It is the main talk of Strongman right now. I want to say thank you to Cale Beck from Starting Strongman for joining us this week. We'll hopefully get you on again. And obviously, Marcus, Mr. Team Affinity, Mr. Caveman, thank you for joining me again this week, guys. Guys, remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Comment below on who you think is going to make the final of World's Strongest Man.
Joe Biden. Had to. I just had to. We can't believe we haven't mentioned it. It's in America. That's got to get at least a comment.
If they listen this long.
If they're still listening now, yeah, definitely. Right, guys, take it easy. We'll catch you next week.
Thank you.
While you're here, guys, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of my awesome strength content.